Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. On this Tuesday, I can't believe it's only Tuesday evening. So welcome to the show, guys. We got a good show for you also. Hopefully you stick with me for the next hour. We have a fun story on Devin Nunes, who's apparently not happy with Twitter. So you're going to love the story on that one. He's actually suing Twitter and random Twitter accounts. Too much fun. And I'm going to tell you why, and you're going to love it. Then we do have a more serious report on Donald Trump and his assets, his financial assets, including his relationship with Deutsche Bank. So that's very interesting. We'll dive into that. Yeah, that's quite a report. So then we also have a little bit of fun. We've got Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway, versus Donald Trump on Twitter. That's fun. We have Robert Kraft. So Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, I'm going to both go after him, and then I'm going to defend what he did. What? No, you'll see. You'll see what happens. Because there's a lot going on in that story, and there's some conflicting opinions here, and of course there's a whole ton of privilege, and so I can't wait to go through that segment, because I think a lot of you are probably going to be like, oh yeah, I get it, and I see why. So fascinating controversy on the show today, and then of course we have new details in one of Trump's fundraisers and money laundering probe. So lots of fun investigations going on here related to Trump and people in his orbit, as well as banks. So that's fun. Okay. Anyway, so before I get into that, again, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and share the stream. So that helps us out, helps us greatly. Another way to help us, patreon.com/TYT Nation. I want to give a couple of shout outs to people who support the show, starting with Janet Eason, Michael Bayat, Iqbal Zarguni, Fewer, who was a good friend of mine, actually. Thank you. Abina Akufo Akoto, and Crystal Rose. So thank you to all of those people that I've given a shout out to. You help support independent progressive media. I also want to thank a couple of donors for donating to our GoFundMe campaign. We have Monica Germundsen, and we have an unidentified or a donor that wishes to remain anonymous, but you know who you are. So thank you so much for donating to that and helping us out with equipment. And so we appreciate that. Those donations help the show run, help keep us afloat, help keep the lights on, especially when, of course, there was some very, very difficult times here on YouTube. So thank you. I couldn't thank you enough for your support. Okay, so let's get into our first story. We'll talk about Devin Nunes and his ridiculous lawsuit. Okay. Here we go. That's going to make sense in the context of the story, so stay with me. All right. So Representative Devin Nunes is not happy with social media. It turns out people are mean to him on Twitter, and he can't stand it. So now he is both suing Twitter and several random social media accounts. So this is an interesting story. Now, this is a complaint that was filed in Henrico County Circuit Court in Virginia on Tuesday. And Nunes, the former representative, is now seeking $250 million in damages. I'm sorry, not former representative, but he did sit on one of the committees that is now, of course, filled with Democrats. So, a little correction there. According to the New York Times, in making his case, Mr. Nunes, a loyal ally of President Trump and former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, repeated several common Republican complaints that Twitter has repeatedly denied. For one, that it censors Republicans, shadow bans their accounts, and actively helps their opponents. So now, this is the more interesting part of this lawsuit because of the, activity of that is considered shadow banning. Now, what is that? In case you might have not heard that term. Well, basically, it's described as the act of blocking or partially blocking a user or their content from an online community such that it will not be readily apparent to the user that they have been banned. So it's a ban, but it's not banned. It's like a soft ban, whatever, right? Your content is not showing up. Your tweets aren't showing up. So he alleges, right? Now, is shadow banning a thing? Look, mainstream media, New York Times, etc., like, no, it is absolutely not a thing. Never happened. Is it? Yeah, I think it is. There is actually shadow banning. And so, look, let's talk about YouTube. I'm on YouTube right now. This is how, you're watching a video, obviously, on YouTube. In my experience, look, I've had my videos not show up in subscriber feeds. I've had demonetization, blocking of videos, things like that, right? And look, is that a shadow banning? I think it's I guess, the closest thing to that, but I'm going to explain the difference here because what this is actually is algorithms, right? Now, Facebook and YouTube and Twitter all run on an algorithm, right? So now that means humans don't necessarily control it, right? Now, you can program the algorithm, you can tweak it, and you can over-tweak it, you can under-tweak it, you can make it do different things or make it ignore certain content or prioritize other content or, certain content over other content, which I think is in the case of YouTube for a while. I believe they put more establishment content at the forefront or more user-friendly or, no, I'm sorry, not user-friendly, but advertiser-friendly content in the forefront. So, yeah, that's the thing. But again, algorithm, they do change and they're used. So now what happened with some conservatives is one of those algorithm changes also produced a bug. That bug made it look like, oh my God, we've been banned, we've been shadow banned, right? Now Twitter said, we fixed that, don't worry. So I went and took a look at Devin Nunes' feed, and he doesn't look like he's blocked or banned or his tweets are showing up. He doesn't tweet very often. In fact, he tweeted a couple of days ago, found this plastic straw in my garden today. Anyone have the number for the straw police, socialists? Well, I can see that tweet. And a lot of his followers. Look, he's got over 300, almost 400,000 followers. He got 22,000 likes on that, 10,000 comments, and some, number of retweets, right? So that's a fairly normal ratio of people responding and tweeting and etc., right? So if you want to claim that, no, I'm shadow banned, most of my followers didn't see that, or maybe they didn't care. There's that other issue on that. So, look, I don't know. To me, it doesn't look like a shadow ban. To me, it looks like you're just not engaging on Twitter very often. And look, it's kind of the same thing with me. I've got a really small Twitter following, at Jeff's Politics, by the way. Very small Twitter following. I don't get a lot of retweets. I don't get a lot of comments, but I don't tweet very often either. So, and every once in a while, I do get a tweet that catches viral. And that's great. Do I think I'm shadow banned on Twitter? No, of course not. But then again, oh, Jeff, you're not a conservative. Only conservatives get shadow banned because Jack Dorsey is liberal and Facebook and YouTube and all that. They're liberal. Really? How come we have a gigantic alt-right presence and conservative presence on YouTube? Kind of weird. But anyway, so look, that's shadow banning, right? So now with that, let's go to the fun stuff. All right. Now, the complaint described objectionable tweets from 3 users as something that, quote, no human should ever have to bear and suffer in their whole life. Really? Have you ever been in a YouTube's comment section? I mean, I can guarantee the comment section on some of our videos, the AOC versus NRA, for example, are about 1,000 times worse than what Devin Nunes is seeing right now that he's complaining about. Now, the complaint says one of the tweets had falsely stated that Mr. Nunes had brought, quote, shame to his family, and that he was voted, quote, most likely to commit treason in high school, and that one of them included a cartoon image of a sexual act between Mr. Trump, and President Vladimir Putin of Russia. Yeah, that doesn't sound like the stuff that I get. I get terrible stuff. And if you're a woman online, and especially if you're doing news, they got it way, way worse. So, but anyway, there's more. The complaint also lists dozens of other tweets that Nunes found personally insulting. Aw. Houston, we've got a snowflake here. I mean, Nunes is out here saying, how dare they insult me on Twitter? Wait, I'm sorry. I thought that's what we do on Twitter. I insult politicians. If so, I am very confused as to the point of Twitter. Seriously, though. No, this is like walking into a casino and getting upset that people are gambling. What do you mean there's gambling in this establishment? Oh, how dare they? Do you know that AOC, she's a politician, representative, she gets attacked constantly from right-wingers. They attack her looks, they attack her intelligence, they say hateful things about her all the time. I'm sure she gets threats, death threats, rape threats, etc., right? So she doesn't complain, though. She's actually not whining about people being mean to her on Twitter. She, in fact, turns it around and goes after the haters. And though some people might have a problem that she attacks and that she goes on the attack on Twitter, I don't have a problem with that. But Nunes and these Republicans, they cry and cry and cry, and then decide to sue Twitter. And it's ridiculous. And by the way, part of this is him saying, well, the people that are against me, they're doing it because they have a political agenda against me. But she's not even, or Nunes is not even suing a Democrat. He's actually suing a fellow Republican. The New York Times explains, Mr. Nunes singled out a woman named Liz Mayer, who was a Republican strategist, who said on Twitter that she would not comment on the lawsuit. Now, this is where it gets confusing. Not only is he suing Liz Mayer and Twitter, but also 2 parody accounts. Now, these 2 parody accounts are at Devin Nunes's alt mom and at Devin Cow. Devin Cow? Really? Apparently it's Devin Nunes's cow. I don't know. I checked it out. It is actually kind of funny. The complaint says that Ms. Mayer coordinated with the anonymous accounts and a, quote, vicious defamation campaign, but did not offer evidence she was behind them or communicated with them, except for one tweet encouraging people to follow at Devin Cow. So, snowflake. Absolute snowflake. I've got no evidence. But, I'm going to sue her anyway. And these parody accounts, because they're so mean, defamation. It's funny. If you see a parody account like I do, why would you not encourage people to follow it? Like a funny parody account. Like I follow Joel Dongstein. I think it's hilarious. Where he replaces God with dick. It's awesome. And I'm a child. I know. But anyway, the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. And of course it's ridiculous just like the lawsuit is ridiculous. I mean, there's no way he's going to win $250 million. It's insane. And look, here's the reason why, right? The law protects large internet platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from liability based on what their users publish, right? And also on comments, right? Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act says they should not be treated as the publisher or speaker of the content, allowing the platforms to exist without having to pre-approve every post for potential legal issues. Now imagine if we lived in that world, right? If we were in a world where every platform, social media post had to be approved because the company itself would be liable for what someone on the platform says. You know what would happen? No more comment sections. No more YouTube. This would not exist, right? I would not have a show because YouTube would never approve some of the stuff that I say. I mean, look, seriously, though, regular people would end up losing their voice because, look, regular people are on social media. And look, the great thing about social media is that we have removed the gatekeepers in creating content. And in the David Nunes's world, in a world where companies were basically punished for what their users upload or users say, we wouldn't have this openness. We wouldn't have the internet as we know it. So, I mean, that's some serious stuff, right? Now, that said, we do have a problem with actual hate, harassment, and death threats and rape, stuff like that. And that is a bit of an issue, right? But nonetheless, Devin Nunes, he just sees political opposition to him or people just making fun of him. And since he's a soft little snowflake, he's like, I can put the gatekeepers back up. I can't handle this. I can't handle this. And of course, making the result would be there would no longer be an online community. It would be impossible. So that's a problem. Now, I think that this would be a gigantic abridgment of free speech, right? Now, I wonder if that is the case, if then the Free Speech Brigade will come to the defense of Twitter. I mean, where are you guys? Where's Dave Rubin? Dave Rubin, this free speech is under attack. Come to the defense. Oh, no, he's probably too busy interviewing that Islamophobic Australian politician who got egged. By the way, like, power to Egg Boy. Now, one more hilarious part to this lawsuit, by the way, and this is the last part, and this is why it's so super funny. It says, as part of its agenda to squelch Nunes's voice, cause him extreme pain and suffering, influence the 2018 congressional election, and distract, intimidate, and interfere with Nunes' investigation into corruption and Russian involvement in the 2016 presidential election. Twitter did absolutely nothing. What? Extreme. Oh, somebody tweeted something terrible at me. Extreme pain and suffering. Oh my God. Again, have you checked my comment section on YouTube? You want to talk about stuff that would make a snowflake melt? Jesus. So, no, this guy is so sad. I mean, extreme pain and suffering from tweets making fun of him. How dare you? How dare you? I want to pull down. I want all free speech gone. I want to destroy it. I want to destroy it. I want to sue Twitter. I'm such a victim. Shut up, Devin. Shut up. Ridiculous. Okay. Let's move on. Let's get somewhere a little bit more serious. Let's go to Trump's assets. I feel like I'm on a roll today. Deutsche Bag. Love it. Okay. So President Donald Trump has once again been caught in a little bit of a lie. I know, shocker, right? Now, this time about his finances when he tried to get a loan from Deutsche Bank. Now, let's be honest, this happened before he was president. So probably won't get counted, especially if you have somebody like Obama who only looks forward, not backward, on potential crimes. And, you know, again, this could be bank fraud. Anyway, according to the New York Times, Trump reportedly lied about his net worth and the net worth of his real estate assets in order to secure loans from the German bank. Now, he reportedly claimed that he was worth about $3 billion when the bank found that he was actually worth a total of $788 million. Now, this was 2005, right? And in 2010, a Deutsche Bank team also reportedly concluded that he was likely inflating some of his real estate assets by up to about 70%. Now, this information comes from investigations by two different congressional committees and the New York Attorney General into Trump's financial ties with the bank that is known as the world's laundromat. So, now, before we get to the details, let me just say, told you. I knew it. He's definitely not as wealthy as he claims to be, and I've been saying that for quite some time. Like, no, this guy is not rich. You don't rip people off and go bankrupt 6 times if you are rich. You don't do the things that Donald Trump does if you are extremely wealthy. I mean, come on, man. Again, look at the lying, right? The constant lies, the inflating assets, and also just look at his track record. The constant bumbling when it comes to his businesses. He definitely is not a great businessman. No, he's a terrible businessman. But right now, by the way, he claims to be worth about $4 billion. I can almost guarantee that he ain't anywhere close to that. Now, despite the alleged lying, and this is the crazy part, right? In both instances, the bank who, you know, did the research and found out how much he was worth and how much he inflated his assets still approved him for loans. They knew he was lying and said, I don't care, let's give him money. Let's loan this idiot more money. And, of course, unsurprisingly, not shockingly, he lost that money. The New York Times explains. Trump hotels and casino resorts also repeatedly defaulted on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of bonds that the bank sold in 2003. And Trump claimed that he couldn't pay back a loan in 2008 because of the financial crisis, which he likened to an actual natural disaster. Now, the details on those 2003 bonds are fantastic. I will get into that. But what did I say before? Suckers. Hey, Deutsche Bank, you were never going to get your money back, and you guys knew it. And what did I say before? The man is a serial bungler. He can't help himself. And look, by the time that Trump came to Deutsche Bank for loans, I think back in the early or late 90s, he had already gone bankrupt multiple times. They approved him, and they kept loaning him money. And again, going back to the bonds, right? They sold bonds on behalf of Trump properties. Now, the report goes into some of the details. One of them is a 2003 roadshow where Deutsche Bank teams were trying to sell bonds to investors in New York. Let me give you a quote here. The so-called roadshow seemed to go very well. At every stop, Mr. Trump was greeted by large audiences of fund managers, executives, and lower-level employees eager to see the famous mogul. Of course, he was made famous by the book that he did not write, Art of the Deal, and by the mythos surrounding the Trump brand. Now, Trump is only good at one thing in his entire life. Marketing. He knows how to market himself, and he knows how to get people to follow him. I don't see how he is appealing, but I guess the fact that he's so openly and always has been so openly gaudy and pushing it in your face that I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. I'm so rich, I'm so wealthy, I'm so successful, that people just are like, nah, I guess he's rich and successful. I guess he's doing something right. I guess, well, let's follow him. Okay. Now, getting back to this roadshow, right? So now, even though people were excited to see him, people were not excited to loan him money. According to a Deutsche Bank executives, the problem, as they would explain to Mr. Trump, was that few of them were willing to entrust money to him. And why? It's because, well, he keeps losing the money. He's terrible at this. Now, he gave a pep talk to some of these people that he wanted to get money from and sell these bonds to. He said, fellas, I know this isn't the easiest thing you've had to sell, but if you get this done, you'll all be my guests at Mar-a-Lago. So buy my bonds and you can just come to Mar-a-Lago with me. You know what happened? They bought it. The sales team managed to sell hundreds of millions of dollars worth of bonds. Mr. Trump was pleased with the results when a Deutsche Bank executives called him, according to a person who heard the conversation. Now, the executive had to remind him, don't forget what you promised our guys. And that's, of course, for them to come to Mar-a-Lago with Mr. Trump. Now, again, this was after the roadshow was complete, after they got all this money in investments, right? So this guy called him up and said, hey, you got to deliver on your end of the bargain. You're going to bring all these guys to Mar-a-Lago. To which Trump had replied, I don't remember. And also that he doubted the salesman actually expected to be taken to Mar-a-Lago. To which the executive had replied, but that's all they talked about for the past week. He didn't even want to do them. He didn't want to do what he promised that he would do. Take them to Mar-a-Lago. Oh, I don't remember that. Oh, I don't remember saying that. He tried to gaslit his own investors. Oh my God. This guy is the worst. Now, there's more. It turns out that at the end of the day, he had to fly about 15 salesmen to Florida on his Boeing 727, and which is where they spent a weekend golfing with Mr. Trump. Now, a year later, shockingly enough, in 2004, Trump hotels and casino resorts defaulted on those bonds. Deutsche Bank's clients had suffered steep losses. He bungled it again. And the arm of the investment banking division had stopped doing business with Mr. Trump because, of course, he can't help himself. He's an idiot. He is a bungler. He got loan after loan after loan. And the bank literally worked together, hand in hand with him, to sell the bonds. And yet, again, he messed it up. Moron. Idiot. Loser. Which gets to the question of why anybody would ever try to do business with Donald Trump. This loser of losers. This man who was born on third base, handed every single opportunity, and yet, still, for some reason, could not make money. How? He crashed a casino into the ground. So why, Deutsche Bank? Why? Why do you keep loaning him money? I don't know. Now, there's a report that was prepared. And by the way, after all these losses, and I think it was the total number of money, of cash that Deutsche Bank had loaned Trump throughout the years exceeded $2 billion. And so executives at Deutsche Bank are like, now wait a minute, why do we keep giving this loser all this money? Why do we keep loaning this money and then having him lose it and then come back and beg us for more? Look, the rest of Wall Street and the rest of a lot of the banks had learned their lesson already. They got burned by Trump and they're like, okay, we're not going to give to that guy anymore. He's basically been described in this as a pariah on Wall Street. Like, everybody's like, no, this guy loses and he screws up everything that he touches. We are not going to loan him any money. But here's Deutsche Bank, $2 billion later. And then they're finally like, you know what? We're going to have to look into this, right? A report prepared by the board's integrity committee, laughable, right, concluded that executives in the private banking division were so determined to win business from big name clients that they had ignored Mr. Trump's reputation for demagoguery and defaults, according to a person who read the report. So, the review also found that Deutsche Bank had produced a number of, quote, exposure reports that flagged the growing business with Mr. Trump, but that they had not been adequately reviewed by senior executives. So, what happened here? I mean, look, they did business with Mr. Trump, and to try to get other people on board, this is what they're saying. That they ignored the fact that he's probably the worst businessman that we've ever seen. I'm not buying it. I really don't buy it. Here's what I think. They don't touch Trump because I think he knows something. I think Trump might know something about Deutsche Bank that would be damaging to both of them. Deutsche Bank obviously knows about Trump's finances, and that could be damaging to Trump. But maybe Trump knows illegality, probably because he was involved in said illegality. That is my speculation. And let me be clear on that. And what possible illegal things could Trump have been doing with Deutsche Bank? Well, think about it. They're known as the world's laundromat because so many people launder money through Deutsche Bank. What do you think Donald Trump might have been doing? Laundering money through Deutsche Bank. Whose money? I don't know. Could it be Russian money? I don't know. Maybe. That's why they're so afraid to get Trump himself is so afraid of people getting into his finances, these congressional investigations, which of course he thinks are all tied up with the Mueller investigation. But in reality, there are many investigations surrounding Donald Trump. So, look, that's what I think. I don't know. But I definitely think it's more than just, oh, no, we want big name clients. And we think Donald Trump will lure big name clients to us. Ridiculous. That cannot be worth losing $2 billion. Maybe the first time it's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see if this works. And then the first couple of times that he loses all of his money and says, I can't pay you back. Sorry, I'm going to have to go bankrupt for the 5th time. Well, then you might think, wait a minute, maybe this is not such a smart investment. I don't know. And now there's one more thing that makes it not worth it for Deutsche Bank and why they've been forthcoming. Look, since Trump became president, there's been a lot of scrutiny on Deutsche Bank and his ties with, and their ties with Donald Trump. And look, we've got investigations into them now, where all this information is coming out, and there will likely be more. And so, unfortunately, hey, for Deutsche Bank, that's kind of what happens when you do business with Donald Trump. He finds some way to wreck it. And that's who Donald Trump is. Serial bungler to the core. Okay. I'm going to take a break. We will come back. We've got Trump versus Kelly. I keep saying Kellyanne Conway, but George Conway. That's fun. We'll have a little fun with that. And then we'll talk about Robert Kraft, and we'll get some very controversial opinions on sex work. So come back for that. Super chats, I will read them after the break, so send them. And I will try to read some member comments, too. So stay right here. Around the Nation. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so I've got some comments that I want to read from the YouTube chat that are fun. First off, I Fart Magic says, anyone on bet on my Stork's healthcare plan? It's nope. So yeah, I saw that. Keeps private insurance. Yeah, pretty much a no. So it's like, oh, it's Medicare, but kind of, but not really. It's not single payer. It's basically the same system with a public option. And look, I was there in 2012, right? I was probably there before 2012 for a public option. Now it's Medicare for all now. Like, let's do it already. Universal healthcare, true universal healthcare, Medicare for all, single payer. If you're not for single payer, then you're sad. Especially when it's polling at over 70%. Come on, man. So, Beto O'Rourke. No thanks. So, now also, a couple of member comments here from the Siroth, who's just on fire today. He said, I don't think it's, even if it's Twitter, even if Twitter is shadow banning, Twitter has a right to do so. It's only the government suppressing free speech that's the First Amendment applies to. So that, look, yes, you're right. Companies do have the right to do what they want. I think the argument that I would be making is the same one that Ron Placone makes. And it's that these social media platforms have become too large to remain in private hands. And what do I mean by that? Like, I guess like nationalizing Facebook, maybe nationalizing, or just maybe realizing that speech on these platforms should be considered free speech. And so they're not able to shadow ban people. So I don't know where you stand on that. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. But it's just one of those things where, yes, you're technically right, but I think we should make it so that there is protected speech on these platforms. So, and then of course on Trump, someone stole Trump's Twitter phone. He hasn't tweeted all day. When bad news drops, it's like the team takes the phone away. He was out of it for days during the Cohen talks. I'd like to see his rage at this news. Don't worry, rage will be coming. Rage will always be there. So, when you're dealing with President Trump, I think we'll hear from him very soon. But, okay. Anyway, so, that said, no super chats, which is sad, but, okay. Please give the stream a like and a share. And there, of course, there is some people who are, there's one person in particular that was screaming, it's fake news, fake news. Do you have any proof of that? Like, here we have, and what I didn't mention in the story is this is somebody who works at Deutsche Bank, who is literally working with federal investigators, giving them these documents. So if it's fake news, then you're calling the people at Deutsche Bank working with federal investigators liars. Is that what you're doing? I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, okay. That said, let's get into the next story here. Okay. Change these. And boom. Now, President Trump is currently feuding with White House advisor and former campaign manager Kellyanne Conway's husband. So that's George Conway, who is a conservative attorney, right? So now he's been on Twitter and he has been criticizing President Trump as being unfit for office and mentally ill, right? And look, on Tuesday, and I covered the story yesterday, he tweeted, okay, so he tweeted these things today. It's actually yesterday, on Monday, that he tweeted out the DSM manual. and also tweeted in response to Trump critic Bill Kristol. I'm sorry, no, that's not who he tweeted in response to. This was another Trump critic. Don't assume the things that he says and does are part of the rational plan or strategy, because they seldom are. Consider them as a product of his pathologies, and they make certain sense. And so this was, I believe it was Anna Navarro, that was trying to make a point of, his tweets and his deflections, distractions, they're all a plan to get people to not pay attention to what's going on in the Mueller investigation. Now, I think the Mueller investigation, there's a chance that will be underwhelming. So that's a problem, and that's a course of different discussion. Now, he also tweeted in response to Bill Kristol, to Republicans who have been inclined to acquiesce in a Trump renomination in 2020, read his tweets this morning. Think seriously about his mental condition and psychological state. And then tell me you're fine with him as president of the United States for an additional 4 years. That's Bill Kristol. That actually happened earlier on Tuesday. To which Conway had retweeted to add this, agreeing with this, but would add that all Americans should be thinking seriously now about Trump's mental condition and psychological state, including and especially the media, Congress, and the vice president and cabinet. Now, what's important about that is that it is the cabinet that can actually invoke the 25th Amendment to remove a sitting president who is mentally ill and or unfit for office. So now that's really important to point out. So here's George Conway tweeting out possible mental illnesses that the president might have, and saying, look, this is what the president's doing. This kind of matches up with this particular mental illness. Now, that would be narcissistic personality disorder. Now, in another tweet he added, his condition is also getting worse. How would you know that? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, he got a response from Trump's 2020 campaign manager, Brad Parscale, who said this, quote, "We all know that Donald Trump turned down Mr. Kellyanne Conway for a job he desperately wanted. Excuse me. He barely worked at the Justice Department and was either fired/quit, didn't want the scrutiny. Now he hurts his wife because he's jealous of her success. POTUS doesn't even know him." Trump then, of course, quoted Parscale's tweet and then said, "A total loser." Isn't it kind of amazing how Parscale's tweet sounds a lot like Donald Trump wrote it? I mean, I'm just saying. It sounds a lot alike. Maybe they are a lot alike. Now, George Conway, of course, fired back at this, saying, "Congratulations, you just guaranteed that millions of more people are going to learn about narcissistic personality disorder and malignant narcissism. Great job. Tell us, Donald Trump, which of these diagnostic criteria do you not satisfy?" And of course, he tweeted out a list of some of the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. And they are having a grandiose sense of self-importance. I think that might apply. And look, I'm not a mental health professional, and I do have to point that out. But boy, he does seem to have a grandiose sense of self-importance. Just saying. Is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited power, success, or brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Believes he is special and unique and should only associate with other high-status people. Requires excessive admiration. Takes advantage of others. Has no empathy. Is envious of others or believes others are envious of him. And arrogance. Now, look, just looking at that list, a lot of people would be like, man, sure, that makes sense. I mean, we can go through and we can look at some of the things. But again, I'm not a mental health professional, and neither are random people on Twitter, to be fair. But I still think, looking at what he's done in office and things that he says and the half-coherent sentences, that he tweets out or and that he, utters when he's on the podium. Look, I think he is unstable. I think he's mental. I mean, look, I'm not the only one either. There was an anonymous op-ed written from inside the White House that pointed out a lot of these things and also said, but don't worry. And it came with a caveat. We have adults in the room that are in control of Trump. At that time, John Kelly was working at the White House. And a lot of people that were working at the White House are no longer working at the White House. So are there still adults in the room? I don't know, and that's kind of a scary thought. And speaking of those people who are no longer in the White House, a lot of them have decided to cash in with book deals. And all those books tend to say the same thing, that the man is unstable. He is unstable, and look, he fits a lot of the criteria of having a narcissistic personality disorder. And look, he is prone to doing illegal things without remorse, asking people to do illegal things on his behalf. And now here's George saying, the guy's getting worse. Now look, maybe that's a casual observation from somebody who happens to have been paying attention and is very concerned. Or it could be that maybe he knows who the author of that White House op-ed is. Maybe, or might even be living with that author. Who knows? Speculation, right? And again, this entire segment is basically speculation. I don't know Trump's mental status. But I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't something wrong with him upstairs. But it is clear from what I've seen and the people that have been serving in the White House, they think he's mental too. And that, look, right now, the hypocrisy about this and the sad thing about this is the Republicans probably know that he's insane, that he's got mental problems, right? Or they'll assume he does. And instead of being honest about this and coming out in the open while they're in the cabinet or pursuing the 25th Amendment, they're instead waiting till they leave office, writing books, and cashing in. That shows that they put themselves over the country. And so that, again, that's problematic, right? And look, I just hope that either he loses in 2020 or they get enough balls to do the 25th Amendment to remove him before he does something insane and rips the country in half. Okay. All right, let's move on here. All right. Let's see. I love how there's a Star Trek discussion going on in the chat right now. That's great. Now, New England's, let me try that again. New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft is being offered a sweetheart deal in which Florida prosecutors will drop the charges against him if he promises to basically admit that he did the crime. Now, that's an interesting possible deal. Now, Kraft's involvement in this, of course, was started when he was caught going to a Florida day spa that has been a part of a human trafficking and prostitution investigation. Now, I'm going to be upfront about this, right? Before I get into the details. I actually do believe that sex work should be illegal. That said, if this place is found to have been involved in human trafficking, well, then I think that's a problem. I think human trafficking obviously should be illegal. I mean, that would be insane to think, oh no, human trafficking, just fine. No, there's a huge difference between human trafficking and sex work. And so let's just point that out. Anyway, prosecutors alleged they had saw Mr. Kraft, a 77-year-old, get it, enter Orchids of Asia Day Spa located in a small strip mall on 2 occasions and then saw him pay cash and receive sex acts, notes the Wall Street Journal. Now, he was identified in a traffic stop after his first visit on January 19th when he was passenger in a vehicle and visited the spa again the next day before the Patriots played the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. So now, here's where I get the controversial opinion, right? So I actually wouldn't care at all if he had visited a prostitute. I don't care. I don't care. I don't think that that's... I think that should be legal. I don't think that's a crime, right? So long as there is no human trafficking involved, and all the women are there of their own volition, and there's consenting adults, this should not be a crime. That said, there's a little bit of a injustice here. And so this is what I want to focus on. Now, prosecutors have essentially offered him the ability to avoid prison, only if he admits that he would have been found guilty had his case been taken to court. So just, hey, look, yes, I did it. I would have been found guilty. Now give me my plea deal. Or my special deal, I should say. Now, the Wall Street Journal reports that the deal, in addition to asking Kraft to admit he would have been found guilty, also requires completion of an education course about prostitution, completion of 100 hours of community service, screening for sexually transmitted diseases, and the payment of some court costs. But absolutely no prison time. 0 prison time. Fascinating. Now, the Journal's report describes the admittance of probable guilt as, quote, an unusual clause, and is not yet clear if Kraft will agree to it, especially after his attorneys have insisted that he engaged in no illegal activity. But here's what they're going to do. You think they're not going to take the deal? No, they're going to take the deal. They've got Robert Kraft. They know he did it, allegedly. So now, why offer the deal in the first place? And this is where I have my problem, right? He's the owner of the Patriots. He's rich and powerful. And what this is there is a 2-tier justice system for people like Kraft. Now, do you think a normal, regular person would be given that deal? I don't think so. I don't believe so. And so, and I think I have a lot of things backing me up on that. No, regular people would get the book thrown at them, right? But Kraft is the owner of the beloved Patriots. We can't apply the law equally, right? We can't be unequal in the application of the law. Right now, we have people in prison for smoking a joint. But hey, you want to pay to have sex with a woman who could have been trafficked? Well, that's okay, as long as you're wealthy. I think there's a bit of an injustice here. So, and look, especially if this woman weren't being trafficked. I mean, in the case so far, no one was actually arrested for human trafficking, just prostitution. And if that's the case, double injustice, right? And obviously for the women that work there, and 2, ironically, because of Kraft. I mean, again, I'm actually defending Kraft in a strange way, while also attacking him. So, like, okay, you know, I believe prostitution should be legal. I think Kraft should be able to do whatever he wants when it comes to paying for sex. That's fine. 100% fine. But at the same time, getting away with essentially nothing, right? No jail time, tiny little bit of a fine, etc., right? Regular people would not be treated that way. And I think that is a big, big problem. Big problem. And so, look, if it was legitimate trafficking, then that's a completely different story. We don't quite know right now, you know, what's going on here. So, a lot going in this story, right? A lot going on. And so, again, my problem is wealth and privilege and how it tends to set up a 2-tier justice system where people who are wealthy, people who are famous, can get away with things and get much more lenient sentences than, say, a regular person. And so we need a system that actually does an equal application of justice. And so I guess at the end of the day, that's my problem. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Thank you for supporting the show. We'll be back. I don't know if we'll be back tomorrow. We will see what's going on. And so I will let you guys know if there's a show tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Thank you all. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Or not.